Hi, it's Jen Freeman with tipresource.com. I have a very simple recipe I want to share with you today. It's actually one that Alexander, my son, who is 7, asks for quite often. It's butternut squash soup. I've put a twist on it throughout the years. I add curry to my butternut squash soup. So it's now titled Curried Butternut Squash Soup. Nice and easy this time of year. It's around the fall. This time of year, butternut squash is on sale. So the first thing you want to do is buy a squash, cut it in half and dig out the seeds, turn the squash upside down in a pan, like a jelly roll pan or a cookie sheet pan, where you can put just a little tiny bit of water. So you have the skin side up on the butternut squash. In that pan with a little bit of water, put it in your oven at 400 degrees. Depending on the size of your butternut squash, you're going to cook it from 30 minutes to 40 minutes. You don't need to be overly concerned about it being completely cooked all the way through because we're going to cook it more on the stove. But you want it cooked enough where you can scoop out the flesh of that butternut squash. So it's nice and easy to cook that butternut squash in the oven. That's your first step. That's probably, I guess that's the hardest step because you have to cut the squash and dig out the seeds. Okay, but once you've got your butternut squash, this is what I've done. I've dug the squash out and I have it in the bowl. I actually did this butternut squash probably 4 days ago when I had the oven on. I just put my butternut squash in there after I was done cooking dinner because for me, a frugal way to save money in our house is if my oven is already on and I'm cooking one meal, I think about is there something I need to put in the oven to prepare it for the next meal. Saves money in the long run. Okay, so I put my butternut squash in here. I just scooped it out and stuck it in here and had this in the refrigerator. Okay, so let's move on to the simplicity of the recipe for the curried butternut squash soup. I only have a handful of ingredients. For a 2-pound squash, I have 3 cans of chicken broth, 1 onion. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of curry powder, a half a teaspoon of thyme. I have a little bit of butter that I am going to saute my onion in. It is that simple. That's all the ingredients I'm going to use in my butternut squash soup. So let's get started. Nice and easy. So I diced up my onion. I have a little bit of my butter in here and I'm sauteing it. The reason why I'm putting it in a saute pan today instead of my sauce pot is because I'm making a double batch and I'm actually just trying to heat my broth up quickly right now. But normally I can saute this in the exact same pan so it becomes just one pot. To my onions though, I'm going to add just a little bit of salt. In the process of cooking, I salt at different intervals. I salt at the beginning of my recipe like this. I'm salting my onion and then I'll salt a little bit in the process of cooking because I think it layers the flavor of the salt a little bit different. If you want pepper, go ahead and add it now also just as a little bit. And I will add my other spices later. So salt and pepper, just add it to your family's taste. So I'm adding my onions to my chicken broth. Like I say, this time I started boiling my broth early just because I'm doubling the recipe and I wanted to get it started right away, but it's not necessary to have this in 2 pans. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm adding my cooked butternut squash into the broth, and then to this I'm going to add my curry, my thyme, and probably a little bit more salt and pepper and cook it, and then you're just about done. Okay, so I am putting in 1 teaspoon of curry and a half a teaspoon of thyme. If you want the extra richness of chicken in your soup, the one thing that you can do, which I do often, is I will take chicken bouillon and add just a little bit more to the chicken broth. I think sometimes it makes a little bit of a heartier soup, a little bit more of a depth of a flavor, so you can always do that. And you can add that at this point of adding chicken bouillon. If you use a regular chicken bouillon, it does have a lot of salt, so I would eliminate the salt at any other point in the recipe because at the end you do not want this to be too salty. I've let my soup cook for about a half an hour, but I'm going to be emulsifying it now, and I'm going to shut this off because I'm going to serve this for dinner, so it's going to sit until dinner time and let some of the flavors blend. So right now I've got my emulsifier. If you don't have an emulsifier, you can let this cool and just use your regular blender because you want this to be nice and smooth. And today I think I'm going to go ahead and add the evaporated milk, but I will add that when I go to warm it up tonight. I won't add it now while this is hot. If you want this completely smooth, you can put the soup through a sieve and have it completely smooth. I don't honestly have mine completely smooth because I add the toasted nuts at the end, and I like a soup that has just a little bit in it, but it's your choice as to how you want to do it. You can serve it like this right now if you would like, or you can let it sit, put it through your blender, get it smoother. At this point, your soup's basically done. I would try the soup after you've emulsified it to make sure all the flavors